Hi, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. Today we're going to answer a question and talk a little bit about jurisdiction. So stay with me. My brief coverage of the Darrell Brooks trial has resulted in a large number of subscribers, for which I'm very thankful, and a large number of questions, and I'm going to try to get to them without having the channel become one-dimensional, all about Darrell Brooks. I think Darrell Brooks is doing a pretty good job of making the trial all about Darrell Brooks. So I want to try to respond to people who have asked questions and said things on the channel, because I feel you're owed that. You know, you've come, you've listened, and you've subscribed, and you'd like to get your questions answered. So I'm going to do that. But if you're not interested in this, please just stay tuned, wait for the next video. I'm sure I'll have a few that are not going to be about Darrell Brooks in the near future. So John Bubba sent me a question, and I'm going to try to answer it for him here. And here's the question. Maybe you can explain this question because no one else has been able to. I know Wisconsin doesn't have the death penalty, so it's not an option. However, if that state did have it, or if Brooks did it in Louisiana where we have the death penalty, something like that, could the DA have pushed for it in charging Brooks, or would his crimes have not met the criteria for special circumstances to receive the death penalty? So let's talk a little bit about jurisdiction. I mentioned it in the earlier video. If you commit a crime inside the state line of Wisconsin, Wisconsin law applies. If you commit it anywhere else, the law of that jurisdiction applies. So if, for example, they had the law in Wisconsin, it would depend on whether the law in Wisconsin required special circumstances. In most cases, most states require special circumstances, sometimes called aggravating circumstances. In Missouri, we call it aggravating circumstances. But that is not always clear in terms of what that means. One of the things that establishes aggravating circumstances is multiple homicides. And in Darrell Brooks' case, there were clearly multiple homicides, 6 of them. Not to mention the scores of people who were injured as a result of his ridiculous drive. So in those states that have the special circumstances or aggravating circumstances, in almost every instance, multiple homicides will meet the test for special circumstances. Now, it is the prosecutor's discretion as to whether or not to charge special circumstances and whether or not to seek the death penalty. In my opinion, this would have met special circumstances. This would clearly have been a situation where his conduct was aggravated by the fact that he killed multiple people and the fact that he had multiple opportunities not to keep going forward and hurting people. You see, at some point while he is driving, he has to realize that he's hurting and potentially killing people. And a rational person at that point who is not intent on committing harm stops and says, "Oh my goodness, what have I done?" Mr. Brooks did not do that because Mr. Brooks didn't care if he hurt people. In fact, I think he figured that was a feature and not a bug. I think he enjoyed the opportunity to inflict pain and inflict death on people that he just, for whatever reason, did not like. And that level of hatred, that level of violence, it's hard to understand, but I get it. That's the way some people are. So at any rate, that's the issue with regard to the death penalty. I do believe that for the most part, anytime you have multiple homicides, you get into the special circumstances area. Now, whether or not a jury would find those special circumstances and whether or not they would indeed sentence him to death is another question. I don't know the answer to that, nor do I pretend to want to even speculate as to whether that's the case. I know that if I was on the jury, I would probably push for that. Even though, for the most part, I do not always believe that the death penalty does much good. But it definitely stops recidivism. So there is that. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on here next time.